The new 10-year-old Cadillac CTS-V Sport Wagon has been added to Forza Horizon 5. It is that time of the week again when there is a new car for us to go and unlock. This time it's this huge Cadillac thing. So I'm going to briefly show you how to get this in a playlist, show you what's going on with the backstage pass, that's a gallant, go back to the festival and see what paint and upgrade options are available for the big estate car, and then go into some Horizon Open racing. As usual, to unlock this new car, all you have to do is go into the festival playlist and complete 20 points of this week's season, which is winter season, just like the previous 3 of them. Anyway, as you can see, to unlock this, I've gone and done the trial, one of the seasonal championships, a photo challenge, and the 4 monthly rivals at the beginning of the series. If, however, you don't go and get this before next Thursday, at the time this video goes out, you will unfortunately have to buy it from the auction house, unless one day it comes to the backstage pass, which we get to vote for cars to be added to each week. So at the moment, this is the cars that are available. There's a rather nice selection of cars that have been in the votes in previous weeks, and the passes aren't too difficult to get. You can get them with Forzathon points or in the playlist. And this week we can vote for whether to add some big saloons and Lamborghinis. Ooh. So I quite like the Lamborghini Countach, but I don't really like the LC. And I quite kind of like the M3, but I don't like the Aventador. I think the Countach is cooler. I'm going to go for that. But these are the cars that you can go and vote for to be added, to be available in the backstage pass. Back to the CTS-V Sport Wagon then. I do think it's an incredibly cool thing, partly because there weren't really many wagons of the CTS-V made, I don't think. I kind of understand why. There's plenty of other fast wagons out there, and Americans don't tend to choose wagons. Saloons seem to be more popular over there. But it is incredibly cool that this thing was made and that Cadillac went and did it. It produces 556 brake horsepower from a 6.2 litre V8 engine, of course it does, but it weighs a rather massive, nearly 2 tons, basically. Here in Forza Horizon 5, it's in A-Class, rated at 724 from standard, but let's go and see what upgrades and customization options are available. Back at the festival then, there are a few manufacturer paint options. Most of them are kind of greys and blacks, but there is a rather nice looking metallic blue and quite an interesting bright red. I'm however going to go and choose a colour that I made earlier, which is a Cadillac colour that I've made in-game using a handy spreadsheet of all manufacturer colours available basically, which has been compiled over many years. I will link it in the description because I was actually asked about colours last week when I painted the new BMW in quite a lovely purple colour. This I'm less sure about. But with matching calipers, I'm going to stick with that for now. Over in the upgrade shop, there is the normal Forza front aero that you'd expect, as well as the normal Forza rear aero, but there is also this version which basically puts a second little wing on the roof and also has adjustable aero just like that big monstrosity, so you can make it have downforce adjustability without putting that hideous monstrosity on it. Rather surprisingly as well, there is also a wide body for the new Cadillac. Yes, it is just the Forza kind of homemade, own brand body kit, but the kind of squareness of it almost fits with the squareness of the Cadillac anyway. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about it. It looks a bit bolted on. So I probably won't leave it on, but this is what it looks like with some aftermarket wheels and lowered suspension to give you that full modified car look. And then if we go back to aspiration, we can twin turbo the Cadillac, all-wheel drive swap it, or fit it with a V10 or V12 if we want to remove its V8 muscle carness. We can of course also change tyre compounds, tyre widths and track widths if you want to fill your arches a bit more, which you probably do. Then you have all of your usual drivetrain upgrades, platform and handling upgrades, including weight reduction, which can bring weight down from 1994 kilos to 1,576 kilos. Not too bad. And then we have all of our usual engine upgrades as well. At this point we went in search of A-Class Purist tunes, Elf opting for a K1Z Bard tune, while I went for a VNX Let's tune. Both similar, but mine had slightly more power. There were a few more differences, but they were very, very close to one another. We then headed into some Horizon Open, joining in time for the first race of a set at the Vulcan Sprint, which wasn't a particularly interesting race, with the Cadillacs finishing 3rd and 4th, behind a Skyline and a Z Nismo. Next up was the Estadio circuit, a track that should favour the Cadillac more than the previous one. The two CTS estates kept up with the Skyline, and Elf was able to pass on the final lap. I got close, but ended up in 4th again. Finally, it was off to the Reservorio Sprint. Here I started on pole, but had already lost 2 places by the first corner to the other Cadillac and the Skyline. I then followed the Skyline into a wall and lost another place, before missing a checkpoint, and then missing another checkpoint. Somehow though, this didn't put me in last place, finishing 4th again. That was the end of one full set of 3 races, but we decided to load into another because we were enjoying this car despite it not being the easiest thing to control. The first race was at the Vista Del Mar Sprint, where I decided not to brake and went straight into the wall of crashes that I'm sure many of us have visited lots of times. I then spent the rest of the race trying to pass a Lagonda, which then stole my 4th place right on the finish line. Next up was the Llanuras Sprint, which started off very boring, until an over-aggressive slowdown penalty let the Lagonda past. I then managed to miss a checkpoint trying to overtake, and that was sort of the end of that. This set of races finished with a race at the Los Jardines circuit, with a Honda of much handling completely sending it into one of the tight corners on every lap it seemed. Apart from that though, it was another kind of lonely race, with another kind of average 4th place finish. Although I wasn't really getting much speed out of this car, and was struggling with it a bit, finishing 4th in most races I'd entered, it was still a fun thing to drive, so we did head into one more set of races. This started at the Llanuras Sprint, where I managed to miss the first checkpoint somehow. Then we headed to the Copper Canyon Sprint, which went reasonably well, ending up with a 3rd place finish, and finally we raced to the Arch of Mulahey circuit, where I had an excellent race with an NSX on the final lap, just losing out at the finish. This car then was some fun, and Elf managed to get some reasonable results. However, I couldn't quite get the potential out of it, I don't think. Yes, we did have slightly different tunes, but I don't think they can have been too different to one another in A-Class and both Purist. It can't have made that much of a difference to how the car drives. Although it was enjoyable to drive, this was kind of ruined by the poor results and by me not necessarily getting the most out of it, so at this point I will be reverting the Cadillac back to stock. And with the Cadillac reverted back to stock, that is going to make it all for today's video. It is an incredibly cool thing. I do love a fast estate. I mean, who doesn't love a 6.2 litre V8 wagon? It is just cool, even if it is rather pointless, and there are many other competitors that should be, well, are much better. There are, though, some interesting surprises in the upgrade shop with that wide body, whether you love it or hate it, or you're completely unsure about it like me, and there's a kind of different rear wing option, which is sort of interesting, so it's nice to see that there are some customization options, even if they aren't necessarily ones I would fit. Tuned up to A-Class, it was quite a bit of fun, but yeah, I kind of struggled with it, didn't get very good results, and, well, found it a bit of a handful, so yeah, I have ended up reverting it to standard, which means sadly I probably won't find much of a use for this thing going forward, but there we go. As ever, do let me know your thoughts on this brand new addition to Forza Horizon 5, but for today's video that is going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next one very soon.